Imagine you're walking through a busy city street. It's the middle of the day, hundreds of people around you, and then you see someone collapse on the pavement ahead. They're not moving. People are walking around them, glancing down, looking away, speeding up their pace. Nobody stops. You slow down. You look at the person on the ground. You look at the people walking past. Everyone seems calm, unbothered. So maybe it's fine. Maybe someone already called for help. Maybe it's not as serious as it looks. So you keep walking too. Later that day, something nags at you. You can't stop thinking about it. You wonder if that person was okay. You wonder why nobody did anything. And then the hardest question of all, why didn't you? You're not a bad person. You're not cruel or indifferent. But in that moment, surrounded by dozens of people, you did nothing. That's the bystander effect. And it's darker and more understandable than most people realize. The bystander effect is the well-documented psychological phenomenon where individuals are less likely to offer help in an emergency when other people are present. Here's the counterintuitive part. The more people who witness an emergency, the less likely any single one of them is to intervene. We tend to assume that more witnesses means more help. Surely someone in a crowd of 50 will step up faster than someone who's completely alone. The research says the opposite is true. A person who witnesses an emergency alone is far more likely to help than one who sees the same emergency in a crowd. Two psychological mechanisms drive this. The first is diffusion of responsibility. When many people are present, each person feels less personally responsible for acting. Someone else will handle it. Surely someone already called. It's not really on me. The second is pluralistic ignorance. We look to others around us for cues about how to behave. If everyone else appears calm and unconcerned, we interpret the situation as less serious, even when it isn't. We take our cue from the crowd, and the crowd is taking its cue from us. The result? A room full of people who all privately think something is wrong, but all publicly act as if everything is fine. The story of how we came to understand this begins with a murder. On March 13, 1964, a 28-year-old woman named Kitty Genovese was stabbed to death outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. The attack happened in two separate incidents. The attacker briefly fled when her screams drew attention, then returned. According to the original New York Times report, which ran 2 weeks later on the front page, 38 neighbors had witnessed the attack from their windows, and not one had called the police. That story shocked the country, but it also wasn't entirely true. Later investigations revealed the original report was significantly exaggerated. Fewer people actually witnessed the full attack. Perhaps only one or two saw it in its entirety. And some neighbors did call police during the assault. None of that makes what happened less tragic, but it does matter because the 38 silent witnesses narrative, while powerful, was built on a myth. What Darley and Latané understood brilliantly was that the underlying question was still worth asking. Even if the numbers were wrong, why do people in crowds so often fail to act? And so they went to the lab to find out. John Darley and Latané were two social psychologists at Columbia University. In 1968, they published one of the most important experiments in the history of social psychology. Participants were brought into a lab and told they'd be having a discussion about the personal problems of college life, over microphones with other students in separate rooms. Partway through the session, one of those voices, pre-recorded, began having what sounded like a severe epileptic seizure. He struggled to speak, said he was going to die, and went silent. Darley and Latané varied one key thing: how many people each participant believed were in the discussion group. When participants believed they were the only one who could hear the seizure, just them and the victim, 85% left their room to get help within the first minute. When participants believed one other person was also listening, 62% helped. When participants believed 4 other people were also on the call, only 31% helped. Same emergency, same stakes. The only thing that changed was how many people the participant thought were witnessing it alongside them. And crucially, the people who didn't help weren't indifferent. When researchers checked on them afterward, many were visibly distressed, sweating, trembling hands, clearly agitated. They were caught in a psychological trap, ashamed for not acting, but paralyzed by uncertainty about whether acting was their place. The bystander effect isn't about cruelty, it's about the way human social cognition breaks down under the pressure of a crowd. The bystander effect shows up in more places than most people realize. Physical emergencies, a large-scale analysis of over 200 CCTV recordings from public spaces in the UK, Netherlands and South Africa, published by researchers including psychologist Richard Philpott, found that bystanders intervened in the vast majority of public conflicts. This actually complicates the simple narrative around the bystander effect. In many real-world situations, someone does step in, but the critical finding was about time and crowd size. As groups got larger, the delay before any intervention increased significantly. In emergencies where seconds matter, that delay can be fatal. Medical emergencies. The logic of diffusion of responsibility plays out with life or death consequences in cardiac arrest situations. When everyone assumes someone else has called for help or started CPR, precious minutes are lost. This is precisely why the American Heart Association now trains people to break the diffusion explicitly, point directly at one specific person and say, "You in the red jacket, call 911, rather than shouting, "Someone call 911" to the room. Specificity assigns responsibility. Responsibility triggers action. In the workplace, the bystander effect extends well beyond physical emergencies. Studies show that employees are far less likely to speak up about unethical behavior, dangerous practices, or problematic decisions when they're in larger teams, because they assume someone else is already handling it, or that it's not their specific role to raise it. The bigger the meeting room, the quieter the voice of concern. Online, digital environments amplify the effect dramatically. A distressing post with thousands of views generates less individual response than one with 50. The crowd is always there, always visible, always providing the implicit message. Someone else already saw this. The bystander effect is powerful, but it's not unbeatable. 3 techniques that actually work. Technique 1. Name someone specific. The single most effective way to break the bystander effect in any context is to eliminate diffusion of responsibility by making one person directly responsible. Don't shout, "Someone help." Point at a specific person. "You in the blue coat, please call an ambulance." This feels socially uncomfortable. Do it anyway, it works. Once one person is designated, they almost always act, and others follow. Technique 2. Be the first mover. In ambiguous situations, the crowd is looking for a social cue. If you act, if you stop, if you ask, "Are you okay?" If you call for help, you break the pluralistic ignorance. You give everyone else permission and a script to follow. The first person to move in a crowd carries a disproportionate amount of influence. That can be you. Technique 3. Pre-commit to helping before you're in the situation. Research on prosocial behavior consistently shows that people who have mentally rehearsed helping, who have thought through, "If I see something wrong, I will do X," are significantly more likely to follow through. The moment of emergency is the wrong time to make that decision. Make it now. Not because you're a hero, but because you understand that your brain, left to its own devices in a crowd, will defer. Override that in advance. The bystander effect teaches us something uncomfortable. Good intentions are not enough. The situation shapes behavior more than character does. But knowing that is exactly what gives you the ability to act differently. The bystander effect doesn't make witnesses monsters, it makes them human, the same way it makes the person who keeps walking past someone collapsed on the pavement human. Understanding this bias won't make you immune to it, but it gives you something valuable, a heads up. The next time you're in a crowd and something feels wrong, you'll recognize the pull to defer, and you'll know that the most important thing you can do is ignore it. If this video made you think, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. Next up, why losing $20 feels twice as bad as finding $20 feels good. It's called loss aversion, and it's quietly running more of your decisions than you realize. See you there.